Hi, I'm Irene. I work 2 jobs waitressing double shifts just to help my sister stay afloat, but then she showed up at my job, called me a lowlife in front of a packed restaurant, and walked out like I was nothing. I thought that would be the worst part, but what came after the lies, the guilt, the way my own parents turned their backs. What do you do when the people you love treat you like a utility instead of a daughter? Some people carry family in their wallets. Pictures, phone numbers, emergency contacts. I carry mine in my spine, in the slouch of my shoulders and the exhaustion that never really lifts. It was around 6:30 in the evening, and I was wiping down the counter at the restaurant before the dinner rush picked up. The overhead lights buzzed softly, and a faint scent of marinara clung to the air. I'd been working double shifts all week covering for a coworker who quit without notice. My manager barely looked at me anymore, just tossed a dish rag my way and mumbled, "You're a lifesaver." I'm not. I'm just a woman in her 30s who learned too early that when people around you start drowning, they'll grab whatever's closest to stay afloat. And that was always me growing up in Sacramento. My parents raised us in a house that looked calm from the outside, white shutters, trimmed lawn, but inside it was all about who shined the bright. My sister Kala always had a spotlight. Mom said she had star quality, whatever that meant. Dad called her our little diamond. I was just the steady one, the helper, the problem solver. At first I wore it like a badge. Who wouldn't want to be dependable? But over time I noticed something. Colin never had to lift a finger, unless it was to point at someone else to do it for her. Usually that someone was me. A few weeks ago Mom called during my short break between shifts. I was sitting in my car, engine off, sandwich untouched. "Honey," she started soft like she always did when she wanted something, "your sister's had a rough patch lately. I was wondering, could you help cover her rent just until she gets back on her feet?" I didn't answer right away. I stared at the crack in my windshield, the one I couldn't afford to fix. "She's your sister," Mom added, as if that settled everything. "Family helps each other." Dad was silent on the line, but I knew he was there, probably nodding, always the quiet partner in this twisted little arrangement. They didn't have to say more, they never said more. The burden just rolled downhill, and I caught it again. I said yes. I always say yes. The next day I checked my credit card statement out of habit, something in me uneasy. That's when I saw it. 2 separate charges totaling nearly $900, one at a boutique downtown, the other for some online cosmetic brand I'd never heard of. My chest tightened. I knew somehow. I just knew. When I called Kala, she answered like nothing was wrong. "Oh, that don't be dramatic." She laughed. "I needed a few things. You're the one with the job, right?" I said, "Nothing. You always said you'd be there for me, and it was just this once. I swear, don't turn it into a whole thing. Just this once." Funny how just this once always finds its way into the mouths of people who make a habit of taking. That night I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, the same patch of water damage from last winter blinking back at me. I thought about the culinary program I'd looked into at the community college I'd bookmarked months ago, even saved up for the first semester. That money was gone now, and still I didn't call her back. I didn't demand the money. I didn't even tell our parents what she'd done. I just kept going. The next morning I poured black coffee into a chipped mug, buttoned up my server uniform, and walked out the door like nothing was broken, like I wasn't, because in this family silence is survival, and survival is expected. I stared at the phone, heart pounding, not from fear but from the slow-growing realization they were never going to stop asking. That realization didn't fade the next day. It stuck with me like smoke in my clothes. Every message from my mother felt heavier. Every ring of my phone made my stomach turn. I stopped checking my balance, 'cause I already knew what it would say. The restaurant was packed that Saturday night, live music, wine flowing, plates clean, thinking a good night for tips. If your heart wasn't 3 counties away. I kept my head down, moving from table to table, balancing trays and small talk. One table asked for extra bread sticks 4 times, another tried to flirt. All I could think about was the math in my head: rent, gas, callous bills, groceries, the late night pharmacy trip I hadn't budgeted for. By 7:45 the dining room buzzed like a beehive. I just finished clearing a table near the back when I heard it, her voice. "That's my sister, believe it or not." I didn't have to turn around. I already knew it was Kala. She was seated with 2 people I didn't recognize. She wore a tight black dress, full makeup, and her hair in that styled wave she usually only pulled out for weddings or pity plays. The people with her laughed like she was a celebrity. I stayed behind the partition, praying someone else would take their table. No such luck. "Table 15's asking for you," Jessa said, glancing at the screen, then at me. "They said your family." My heart knocked against my ribs. I walked toward the table like I was walking the plank. Calab beamed. "There she is. Isn't she cute in her little apron? You guys, this is my sister Irene. She owns this place." She burst into laughter before correcting herself. "Kidding, she just works here." I froze mid-step. Her voice was loud enough to catch the attention of the table behind her. My manager Marco glanced over. I gave a tight smile and focused on the notepad in my hand. "May I take your order?" I asked. Kala leaned forward, elbow on the table. "You still working nights? I figured you'd have leveled up by now." One of her companions let out a surprised laugh like they weren't sure if they were allowed to react. "I mean, come on," she added, twirling her wine glass. "You're really okay being everyone's servant?" "I couldn't do it. Some of us actually have ambitions, you know." The words didn't hit me like a punch. They cut deeper, the kind of pain that doesn't bleed, just stays Under your skin cold and permanent. I looked at her, really looked, and then she leaned closer pretending to fix a stray strand of her hair quietly for me. Only you're just a low-life waitress, Irene, that's what you'll always be. I said nothing. I didn't flinch. I walked away without taking their order. Marco was already heading my direction. You okay? He asked. I'll take my break now, I said before he could say more. In the kitchen I sank onto a crate near the storage shelves. My apron felt like it weighed 50 pounds. I wiped my hands on my jeans, which only made them feel dirtier. My throat tightened, but I wouldn't cry, not here. Jessica came in a minute later holding a cup of water. Are you all right? I nodded, lying with the reflex of someone who's done it too many times. Just got dizzy for a second. She didn't press. The rest of my shift blurred. I avoided table 15. Another server picked it up. Kala didn't try to stop me when she left. No wave, no thanks, just the sound of her heels clicking across the tile floor like nothing had happened. I left work after midnight. The air was crisp, finally cool after a hot day. I walked home, didn't wait for the bus, didn't call a ride. I needed the silence more than I needed to sit. Her voice looped in my head. You're just a low-life waitress. It was one thing to be taken for granted behind closed doors, but this was different. I didn't cry when I got home. I didn't pour wine or call anyone to vent. I changed into pajamas, sat at the edge of my bed, and just stared at the floor. The clock ticked past 1:30 a.m. Somewhere deep in me something cracked quietly without ceremony. I couldn't keep letting her do this, and just like that I knew this wasn't the worst she could do. It was only the beginning. The next morning came slowly, like a bruise forming under the skin. Quiet at first, then unmistakable. I bed my coffee as usual, staring out the kitchen window at a neighbor walking their dog. It was a Sunday. I think the kind of day you're supposed to use for rest or brunch, or walking through a farmer's market with someone who holds your hand. Instead I sat in silence, my phone screen lit up with unread texts from Kala. Her tone was cheerful, as if nothing had happened, as if humiliating me in front of strangers was a passing cloud we could all forget. Hey, you want to come over later? I found that movie we used to love as kids. Not an apology, not a single word of remorse, just more of the same. Like always. 3 days later I stopped by my parents' house to drop off a box of summer clothes they'd asked me to pull from storage. I hadn't planned to stay long. The air always felt heavier there. As I set the box down by the door I heard voices drifting from the kitchen. Mom soft and exasperated, Dad low and calm, a familiar rhythm. It's not like the last time we paid her credit card bill. My father said Irene never found out, and it helped Kala get through that rough patch. I froze. The box slipped slightly from my grip, hitting the floor with a quiet thud. They didn't hear it. Never found out that rough patch had been the semester Kala went to Paris on a study break. I thought she'd saved for it. I thought she had a scholarship. I had even mailed her a care package with my tips tucked inside a book. Stupidly proud of her, but now that had been funded by my parents behind my back, and worse, they never told me. I left without saying anything. I didn't knock, didn't wait for them to notice. I walked out with the sound of their voices still swirling in my head like echoes in a house that was never really mine. The next afternoon I met Camille for lunch at a small sandwich place near her office. We hadn't seen each other in a few weeks, which was rare for us. Normally she was my person, the one who didn't flinch when I said I was too tired to talk, the one who dropped off soup when I got sick, but something felt off. She was polite, even kind, but her smile didn't quite reach her eyes. She didn't ask much about work or my family, just talked about her new upstairs neighbor who practiced the trumpet too loudly at 10 p.m. Halfway through her salad she put her fork down and said, Irene, can I ask you something? I nodded. Did you know Kala borrowed money from me? I blinked. What she said, it was just a short-term thing. Emergency rent. I figured you were helping, so she must be good for it. I sent her $400. That was 2 months ago. My mouth went dry. I hadn't known, of course I hadn't. She ghosted me after that. Camille continued. Didn't respond to messages. I didn't want to bring it up, but I think she used me, and I think she used your name to do it. I wanted to say something, anything, but all that came out was I'm sorry. She smiled, but it wasn't warm, it was resigned. I know it's not your fault, she said gently, but I think I need a little space. That sentence hit harder than I expected. I nodded, even as the pit in my stomach grew. She paid for her half of the meal and stood up. I'll text you later this month. Maybe. I watched her leave through the front window, her purse slung casually over her shoulder, the way people walk when they're no longer carrying part of your world. That night I sat in bed scrolling through social media. Kala had posted a story of her laughing at a rooftop bar, champagne in hand, caption, brunch queens do it better. She didn't look guilty, didn't even look aware. I wondered how someone could cause so much harm and still sleep like a baby. How could she smile like that when everything she touched left someone else hurting? I closed the app, my hands were shaking, and then without even thinking I deleted it, all of it. Instagram, Facebook, even the messaging threads with her name. Silence flooded in. I walked to my desk, pulled out an old notebook I hadn't touched in years, and opened to a blank page. I started writing, not to vent, not to accuse, but to track line by line every payment, every favor, every lie, not for revenge, for clarity. For me, I didn't need apologies anymore, I needed boundaries, and this time I was going to draw them. It started with a phone call at 10:17 a.m. on a Tuesday. I was folding laundry, a podcast humming in the background, when the screen lit up with an unfamiliar number. Normally, I'd let it go to voicemail, but something instinct maybe made me swipe. Hello, a man's voice answered, professional, detached. Hi, this is Mr. Chen, I'm Kala's landlord. I just wanted to follow up on the rent. Your payment didn't go through. For this month, should I send the invoice again to your email? I blinked my what. He hesitated. Kala said, you usually handle it. She gave me your number in case there were any issues. My fingers tightened around the phone. I never agreed to pay her rent, I said slowly. Please remove my number from your records. There was a pause. Oh, I see, I'll speak to Kala. I hung up without saying goodbye. My breath was shallow, my heart not racing, boiling. It wasn't just about the money, it was the gall, the entitlement, the way she kept handing out pieces of my life like they were hers to give. I sat down on the edge of my bed, phone still in my hand, and stared at the floor like it had answers. 5 minutes past 10. Then I typed out the message, if you ever give my name or number to someone regarding your finances again, I'll involve the police. This isn't a joke, I'm done. I hit send. No emojis, no love you anyway, no explanation. 2 minutes later she replied, chill, it's just rent. You always overreact. I tossed the phone onto the couch like it had burned me. Maybe I did overreact for years, and maybe now I was finally reacting just enough that Friday Aunt Vivian invited me over for dinner. Her voice was warm, the kind that made you exhale without realizing you've been holding your breath. Just as she said, no expectation, come hungry. I brought a small dessert I didn't bake, but pretended I had. It didn't matter. She smiled like I'd brought her gold. We ate chicken piccata with roasted potatoes and lemony greens. She poured me a glass of wine and sat across the table, eyes kind but searching. I've been meaning to say something, she began. I know your parents lean on you a lot. I swallowed hard, nodding. She continued, it's not fair. They raised 2 daughters, but only one was ever expected to hold the roof up. My throat tightened. I looked down, blinking fast. She reached across the table, touched my hand. You don't have to keep doing it. You're allowed to say no. For a moment, I didn't know what to say. No one had ever said it so plainly, not with love, not with permission. Then the phone rang. It was me. Mother. Vivian sighed, already knowing. I picked up only because I didn't want to lie. Later, are you talking about us? Mom said, her voice cool. Vivian's always been good at stirring the pot. Mom, we're just having dinner. She cut me off. Don't forget who helped you pay your first month's rent. Irene, don't let people fill your head with. Vivian took the phone from me calmly, gracefully, and said, maybe if you raised both daughters equally, Irene wouldn't have to keep cleaning up your mess. She ended the call without another word. My jaw went slack. You didn't have to. I did, she said, pouring another glass, because no one else ever has. After dinner, I helped wash dishes. The silence between us was soft, not awkward. She handed me a towel and said, you're stronger than you think, but strong doesn't mean silent. I went home just before 10. The streets were quiet, headlights in against damp asphalt. When I reached my apartment, I didn't turn on the TV or check my phone. I sat at the kitchen table and opened the same notebook from the other night, and this time, instead of listing debts, I made a new list. Boundaries. I won't answer money requests. I won't defend someone who won't defend me. I won't explain my choices to people who only listen to judge. I won't play the villain in someone else's fantasy. I closed the notebook, leaned back, and whispered out loud, I've said yes my whole life. Maybe it's time they hear a no, and if they didn't like what came next, that was their problem, not mine. I went to bed that night with a strange stillness in my chest, no shaking hands. No lump in my throat, just silence, the kind that fills a room after a door has been closed for good. But that peace lasted less than 36 hours. I woke up Thursday morning to a message that twisted my stomach before I even unlocked the screen. I'm sorry if I've been awful. I don't want to be here anymore. It was from Colin, no punctuation, no follow-up. Just that I shot upright, heart slamming against my ribs. The room suddenly felt cold. Despite the spring sun pouring through the window, I dialed her number straight to voicemail. Watch out for part 2 and see what Irene did to her sister. Thanks for watching this video. Don't forget to subscribe, comment, like, and turn on the notification button for our next interesting stories. See you in our next story.